So what if the fitness program that helped your gym partner, pack on like 15 pounds of muscle is actually the exact same biological reason that you are actively losing strength?
Yeah, it's a bitter pill to swallow.
Right. But the thing is, you aren't broken. You're not like genetically cursed. You are just fundamentally underdosed.
Exactly. I mean, for a lot of people, when you really look closely at the diagnostic landscape of human physiology,
Hmm.
those neat binary expectations we have, they just fall apart. Where a specific input supposedly guarantees a specific output, it completely collapses.
Yeah, because we treat fitness like it's engineering, right?
Yeah.
Like if you apply a certain amount of torque to a bolt, it turns.
Right.
If you run a specific training template, you build a specific amount of tissue. But, biology isn't physics.
Not at all.
And that's really our mission for today's deep dive. We're going to take a sledgehammer to one of the most honestly pervasive and frustrating concepts in modern fitness.
The hard gainer myth.
Exactly, the hard gainer myth. We are going to completely dismantle the idea that you, or really anyone else, is a biological non-responder to exercise.
Which, to do that fairly, requires us to look at what 2 decades of rigorous sports science actually says.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at kinesiology data about individual variability. We really have to strip away the gym lore,
Oh, the marketing copy.
Yeah, the marketing copy entirely, and just examine the raw underlying mechanisms of how we adapt.
Right. And to do that, we are drawing from this incredibly well-researched video script. It's titled The Dose-Response Solution, Debunking the Hard Gainer Myth.
It's a great piece.
It really is. It was put together for Nuance Lifter Channel, and we actually also have access to 8 of their visual storyboards from the video.
Which are so helpful.
So helpful. They visually map out the cellular and statistical mechanics of everything we're discussing today.
Right.
So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Because understanding this doesn't just change how you program your workouts. It literally changes how you interpret your own biological feedback.
Right, and I think we have to start by validating the very real, very frustrating lived experience that creates this myth in the first place.
Absolutely. Because you're probably intimately familiar with this scenario.
Everyone is.
Yeah. The visual storyboard from the video sets it up perfectly. It's 2 individuals, backs to the camera, standing side by side in this functional training facility.
And the visual contrast there is what really makes it sting.
It really does. On the left, you have this individual who is just radiating physical adaptation.
Massive shoulder width.
Massive.
Yeah.
Significant lat development, visible density. And then, right next to him is his training partner.
Wearing the oversized shirt.
Yeah, wearing this baggy shirt, looking like he hasn't touched a weight in his entire life.
And the critical context here, the thing that makes this so painful, is that they didn't just happen to be standing next to each other.
Right.
They ran the exact same periodized program for 3 months.
3 whole months.
3 months of identical volume, identical relative intensity.
The exact same rest intervals.
Everything. And mechanistically, the guy on the left, he added 50 pounds to his bench press, while the guy on the right, he completely stalled out after adding maybe 5 pounds.
Yeah, and when you experience that, when you are the person grinding for that 5 pounds,
Yeah.
your brain immediately seeks a categorization to explain the failure.
Of course it does. Because if the input was identical, the only variable left is the machine itself.
Your genetics.
Precisely. You just assume, well, my satellite cell proliferation is fundamentally flawed.
Right, or your androgen receptor density is just too low.
Yeah, you just categorize yourself as a hard gainer and you want to quit and just blame your parents.
Oh, really?
But what's actually happening here requires us to look at the statistical reality of training studies.
Yeah, let's talk about the visual and the source material for this. It shows a well-worn, kind of dusty logbook with a bell curve drawn right across the pages.
Labeled variability.
Right, and this is really the cornerstone of understanding the whole hard gainer illusion.
It is. Because think about it. When we read a headline about a new sports science paper, it always reports the mean.
Always. Subjects gained an average of 5 kilos on the bench press.
Right, but if you actually dig into the raw scatter plot of the data points, the individuals that make up that neat average, the spread is terrifying.
It's wild. The source text points out that on the exact same controlled protocol, you can have a participant who loses 5 kilos of strength.
Right?
And then in the very same cohort, doing the exact same thing, a participant who gains 50 kilos.
And this is where we really have to critically analyze study design.
Okay.
A standardized program in a clinical setting, it's really just a generalized physiological stimulus.
Like a median dosage.
Exactly. Think about pharmaceutical trials. A 200 milligram dose of an active compound, it will bind to the targeted receptors and produce the desired outcome for the vast majority of people.
The people sitting in the fat middle of the bell curve.
Right. But if you fall on the extreme left tail of that curve, your liver enzymes might metabolize the compound so rapidly that it never even reaches therapeutic levels in your bloodstream.
It does nothing.
Right. And if you're on the far right, 200 milligrams might literally be toxic.
Okay, wait, so if a standardized program can actually result in someone losing 5 kilos of strength,
Yeah.
meaning the catabolic damage of the workout is actively outpacing their anabolic recovery,
Right. Exactly.
then why on earth is the fitness industry aggressively marketing these like median dosage programs as universal solutions for everybody?
Well, because the fitness industry relies on economies of scale. They market to the middle 60% of the bell curve because that's where the math works for them.
Makes sense.
And honestly, for a large chunk of the population, a standard 3 sets of 10 hypertrophy protocol, it provides adequate mechanical tension.
To trigger the MTOR pathway.
Right, to initiate muscle protein synthesis, it works for the average person. But if you fall into the 30th percentile,
Meaning 70% of individuals get a better response than you do.
yes, if that's you, you are statistically normal.
Wait, really?
Yeah, you are having a completely standard human biological experience within a normal distribution curve.
Okay, so you're normal, but you feel completely inadequate.
Totally.
And I think we have to address the environmental factor that's heavily amplifying that feeling.
Oh, absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture.
Yeah, because historically, if I'm sitting in the 30th percentile, I might only compare myself to like the 5 other people in my local gym.
Right.
But today, the algorithms that dictate our social media feeds entirely filter out the middle of the bell curve.
That's a crucial point. I mean, social media platforms are optimization engines for outliers.
Yeah.
The algorithms, they do not amplify a video of someone making a totally normal 30th percentile adaptation.
Right, like adding a quarter inch to their arms over 6 months. Nobody is going viral for that.
Exactly. They exclusively reward and distribute the extreme right tail of the curve.
The genetic hyperresponders?
Yes. So you're scrolling through a feed populated entirely by the top 0.1% of genetic anomalies.
People whose myostatin levels naturally allow for just explosive tissue growth.
And you internalize their results as your baseline expectation.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You compare your totally normal biological reality to a curated feed of literal genetic lottery winners.
No wonder the hard gainer label sticks so hard.
It's an issue of heavily skewed data sampling. You assume you're a non-responder because your response just doesn't match the extreme anomaly.
Right. But, this raises a much deeper physiological question.
What's that?
What about the people at the absolute bottom edge of that bell curve?
Well, who lost strength?
Or the subjects who literally saw zero improvement? Are their bodies genuinely devoid of the machinery required to adapt?
Okay, this gets us to the landmark 2015 study by Ross and his colleagues.
Yes, I love this study.
It completely reframes the physiology of adaptation. So the storyboard for this section, it shows a researcher analyzing massive data sets of fitness response cohorts. And they put a group of people through a very standard 4-week cardiovascular protocol.
And they tracked all the variables, probably looking at mitochondrial density, capillary proliferation, VO2 max, things like that.
Exactly. And at the end of the 4 weeks, they isolated the cohort of pure non-responders.
The people whose markers hadn't budged a single fraction?
Right. Nothing happened.
Now, in the past, sports scientists would just write off that cohort entirely.
They just send them home.
Yeah, they would conclude that a certain percentage of the human population simply lacks the genetic predisposition for aerobic adaptation.
Like, sorry, you're just not built for it.
Exactly. But Ross and his team, they fundamentally changed the experimental design.
This is the twist.
They didn't accept the non-responder label. They hypothesized that the failure wasn't in the biology of the subject.
It was in the dosage of the stimulus.
Yes. So they took that specific non-responder group and forcefully titrated the dose upward.
They doubled it, right?
They doubled the volume and the intensity of the cardiovascular work. And the biological data that came out of that adjustment is staggering.
Because once the stimulus was increased, what happened?
100% of the supposed non-responders successfully adapted.
Every single one of them.
Every single one of them saw an improvement in their cardiovascular markers.
Which means the biological concept of a permanent non-responder to physical training is essentially a myth.
It's a complete myth. There are no non-responders. There are only individuals who have not yet reached their specific, genetically predetermined dose threshold.
Okay, I want to make sure we really nail down the mechanics of this dose to threshold concept.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, if we think about thermodynamics, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's not enough to just apply heat to water to cause a phase change into steam. You have to apply enough sustained heat to cross the actual activation energy threshold.
Right.
You put a pot of water over a tiny little tea-light candle, you could leave it there for a century.
And it will never boil.
Never. The heat energy is dissipating into the environment faster than it's accumulating in the water.
Right.
The water isn't, like, immune to physics.
Yeah.
The stimulus is just grossly insufficient.
That thermodynamic analogy perfectly illustrates the biological reality of the dose threshold.
Really?
Yeah, because in skeletal muscle, hypertrophy is a massively energetically expensive process.
The body doesn't really want to do it.
The body absolutely does not want to build new tissue unless it is entirely forced to by a stressor that threatens its structural integrity.
So you have to hit that boiling point.
You have to accumulate enough mechanical tension and metabolic stress during a session to cross the threshold that signals your cellular nuclei to actually begin synthesizing new contractile proteins.
And the visual storyboard from the source material hammers this home so well. It shows this image of a mechanical speedometer pushing past a red line labeled threshold
Right.
and entering a green zone called breakthrough. What the research implies is that the location of that red line is wildly different from person to person.
Oh, incredibly different. The data suggests that to cross that physiological red line, some individuals might require up to 3 times the training volume of their peers.
3 times.
Yes. So if your baseline requirement to trigger a hypertrophic cascade is, say, 20 sets per week per muscle group,
Okay.
but you are rigorously following a supposedly optimal, evidence-based program that only programs 10 sets.
You're the pot of water over the tea lights.
Exactly. You are generating some fatigue, you are accumulating some cellular damage, but the total magnitude of the stimulus falls totally short of the activation energy required.
So you don't grow at all.
No, your body just clears the localized fatigue, repairs the minor micro tears back to baseline, and halts.
Wow.
You just haven't sent a loud enough chemical signal to warrant an expensive architectural upgrade.
That completely shifts the burden of responsibility. You aren't cursed. You just haven't run a rigorous enough experiment on your own system.
Right.
But, I mean, if you're listening to this right now, you're probably thinking, okay, well, if my threshold might be triple the average, do I just walk into the gym tomorrow and do 40 sets of deadlifts?
Which obviously leads to systemic failure.
Yeah, right. Systemic failure, massive central nervous system fatigue, and probably severe connective tissue damage.
You can't just blindly multiply your volume. You have to systematically troubleshoot your physiology.
And the source material actually provides a really clear 4-step framework for this.
It does.
And it starts with the environment outside the gym. Step 1, recovery and sleep.
Crucial.
The visual here is this deeply shadowed moonlit room signaling profound restorative sleep. And this goes way beyond the generic, get 8 hours advice.
Right. The text establishes this dichotomy of survival mode versus growth mode.
Yeah, break that down for us.
Well, we have to remember that mechanical tension in the gym does not build muscle.
It breaks it down.
It degrades it. You are causing acute localized trauma to the muscle fibers. The actual synthesis of new tissue, the supercompensation phase, that only occurs when the autonomic nervous system shifts.
Shifts from what to what?
From sympathetic dominance, which is the fight or flight state, into parasympathetic dominance.
The rest and digest state.
Exactly. So if you are operating on 4 hours of sleep, heavily fueled by caffeine, and dealing with chronic psychological stress from your job or whatever.
Your body is basically bathed in cortisol.
And cortisol is highly catabolic. Its primary evolutionary function in a stress state is to mobilize energy, often by literally breaking down muscle tissue into amino acids so they can be converted into glucose.
So your body is eating its own muscle to handle the stress.
Yes. If your brain perceives a constant threat environment, it actively suppresses anabolic pathways.
Wow.
Hypertrophy is a luxury adaptation. If the body thinks it's in a survival scenario, it will absolutely refuse to allocate precious energy and resources to building heavy, metabolically expensive new muscle tissue.
It just won't happen.
The physiological environment simply will not permit growth, regardless of how perfectly you cross your dose threshold in the gym.
So you cannot outprogram a broken biological environment.
No amount of perfect programming can out-train a recovery deficit.
If you don't patch the baseline hormonal profile through sleep and stress management, manipulating your volume is entirely pointless.
Exactly.
But, okay, assuming you've got your systemic recovery dialed in.
You're sleeping well.
Right. We move to step 2, experimenting with the volume sweet spot.
This is where the work happens.
The visual here is pure intensity. It's a lifter in a dusty, chalk-filled gym pulling a heavily bending barbell on a deadlift.
And this brings us to a really critical 2020 study by Scarpelli,
I think it's a Pelly study, yeah.
which provides the actual mathematical framework for finding your volume threshold safely. Scarpelli didn't just throw people onto generic high-volume protocols.
He individualized it.
Right. The study examined intra-individual adjustments. They looked at the subject's baseline, like what their body was currently adapted to, and they increased the volume by exactly 20%.
Okay, so instead of just blindly jumping from 10 sets to 20 sets and completely annihilating your central nervous system, you take an incremental approach.
Yes.
But why is 20% the magic number here?
Because it respects the really delicate balance between minimum effective volume and maximum recoverable volume.
Okay.
Your body has a finite capacity to clear fatigue byproducts and actually repair tissue. If you exceed your maximum recoverable volume, you dig a systemic recovery hole that you literally can't climb out of, and performance actually regresses.
You get weaker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So adding exactly 20%, say, going from 10 sets a week to 12 sets, is a small enough increase that your current recovery capacity can likely handle it.
Right.
But it's a significant enough bump in total mechanical tension that it might finally push you over that physiological red line into the breakthrough zone.
You're systematically titrating the dose until you see a response.
Exactly.
But wait, here is where I have to offer some serious pushback based on what the text actually says.
Okay, go for it.
The source material explicitly mentions, if you've been doing 10 sets, try 15. If that feels like too much, try dropping to 8, but pushing those sets closer to true failure.
Yeah.
If the entire premise of the dose threshold is that hard gainers are underdosed and need more stimulus to trigger an adaptation, how could dropping the volume from 10 to 8 sets ever mathematically work? Aren't we just moving backward?
That's a highly logical critique, on the surface.
Yep.
But it fundamentally misinterprets what the dose actually consists of.
How so?
We tend to conflate volume, just the raw number of sets, with that total physiological stimulus, but the dose is actually a complex equation.
Okay.
It's volume multiplied by intensity.
Ah, and when we say intensity here, we aren't talking about a percentage of your 1 rep max, right?
No, not at all. We are talking about proximity to muscular failure.
So how close you are to physically not being able to move the weight.
Exactly. We're talking about motor unit recruitment. When you perform a set of an exercise, your central nervous system recruits motor units sequentially, starting with the smaller, low-threshold, slow-twitch fibers.
Right.
As the set gets harder and fatigue accumulates, the CNS is forced to recruit the larger, high-threshold, fast-twitch fibers just to keep the weight moving.
And those are the ones that grow.
Yes, these high-threshold fibers have the greatest capacity for growth, but they are only recruited during the final, grueling, involuntary slowing reps of a set.
The reps where the bar speed just grinds to a halt despite you pushing as hard as humanly possible.
Precisely. Now, studies consistently show that most gym goers naturally stop their sets 3, 4, or even 5 reps shy of true mechanical failure.
They stop when it burns.
Right, they stop when the acidic burn gets uncomfortable. Therefore, they never actually recruit those high-threshold motor units.
Wow. So if you're doing 10 sets, but you are leaving 4 reps in the tank on every single set, your actual intensity variable is incredibly low.
Negligible. The total hypertrophic stimulus delivered is almost 0.
So if you drop the total volume to 8 sets, but you execute those 8 sets with ruthless intensity,
Yes.
like taking them to absolute redline mechanical failure, where another concentric contraction is physically impossible, The mathematical total of the dose actually skyrockets.
You've drastically amplified the magnitude of the signal. You've forced maximum motor unit recruitment and maximized mechanical tension on the fibers that actually matter.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, for some individuals, their physiology requires a slow accumulation of moderate intensity volume. But for others, their threshold is only crossed by a highly concentrated, incredibly dense signal of absolute failure, even if the total volume is technically lower.
You have to manipulate both sliders.
Right, volume and intensity to find your unique neuromuscular lock combination.
Which is fascinating because it means the variable you need to adjust might not be how much time you spend in the gym, but the psychological intensity you bring to the time you are already spending.
Exactly.
Now, what if you've done the titration? Your sleep is perfect, your cortisol is managed, you found the exact sweet spot of volume and proximity to failure, but you still think you're failing.
This is so common.
This brings us to step 3, escaping tunnel vision on the scale. And honestly, here's where it gets really interesting, because this might be the most common point of failure for anyone trying to analyze their own data.
Oh, it is a massive analytical error.
Okay.
And it stems entirely from using the wrong instrument to measure biological change.
Let's look at the visual storyboard for body recomposition. It shows a woman standing on a digital scale in step 1, wearing baggy clothes, and the scale reads a specific weight.
Right.
In step 3, it's the exact same woman, on the exact same scale reading the exact same weight. But visually, her physical architecture is entirely different.
Radically different.
Her waist-to-hip ratio has tightened, her deltoids are defined, her posture is rigid.
She has undergone a profound physiological shift. But the primary metric she relies on, the scale, is giving her a false negative.
Because the scale is a liar.
It really is. The scale only measures mass interacting with gravity. It is completely blind to tissue composition.
It has no idea what you're made of.
None. It cannot differentiate between an increase in glycogen storage, an influx of intracellular water, an increase in bone mineral density, a loss of subcutaneous fat, or the accretion of lean contractile tissue.
So if you hit your perfect dose threshold and your body simultaneously synthesizes, let's say, 2 pounds of heavy, dense muscle tissue, while oxidizing 2 pounds of adipose tissue.
Which is the literal holy grail of body recomposition.
Right. The net change on the scale is mathematically 0.
0.
And if you're exclusively a scale watcher, you will look at that 0, declare yourself a non-responder, and completely abandon a highly effective program.
You abandon a successful protocol just because of faulty data collection. And it gets even more complex when we look at the immediate physiological adaptations to resistance training.
Neuromuscular efficiency. Let's really dig into this because the text heavily emphasizes this as a reason why your visual mass might not change for months, even while your strength is going through the roof.
Yeah, this is so important. When you expose a muscle to a novel, heavy stimulus, the body is highly reluctant to immediately build new tissue.
Because it's expensive.
Right. Hypertrophy is a last resort adaptation. The body's first line of defense is simply to optimize the hardware it already has.
It upgrades the neurological software.
Right, exactly. Think of it like a conductor finally getting the entire orchestra to play on the exact same downbeat.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to conceptualize it.
Your central nervous system becomes incredibly efficient at rate coding.
What is rate coding exactly?
Yeah. It's the frequency of electrical signals sent from the alpha motor neurons in your spinal cord to the muscle fibers. The CNS speeds that up. It also improves intermuscular coordination, meaning your stabilizing muscles learn to fire in perfect sequence with your prime movers.
So everything is just working better together.
And it actually desensitizes the Golgi tendon organs.
Wait, what are those?
They are the safety sensors in your tendons that normally inhibit force production to prevent injury.
So your brain is literally removing the biological governors and learning to drive the existing muscle fibers significantly harder.
Yes, you are rapidly increasing your capacity to generate force. Your bench press is flying up, but there has been 0 increase in the cross-sectional area of the muscle.
Wow.
So if you are judging your response to a program purely by the visual size of your chest in the mirror or a tape measurement around your arm, you will feel like a failure during this neurological adaptation phase.
Even though it's working perfectly.
Right. You have to broaden your data collection. Are your relative strength metrics increasing? Is your core temperature elevated at rest? Are your clothes fitting differently across the shoulders versus the waist?
You have to look at the whole picture.
These are all data points indicating a successful biological response. You are successfully downloading the software patches. The hardware upgrade just comes later.
That makes so much sense. And that transitions seamlessly into step 4, the role of training styles and the limits of scientific literature.
This is a big one.
The text addresses the tension between being a high-rep responder versus a heavy low-rep responder, and it takes direct aim at how we interpret meta-analyses.
What's fascinating here is how critical this is for anyone trying to navigate the modern, heavily polarized, evidence-based fitness space.
Right, because right now, if a prominent researcher publishes a meta-analysis on hypertrophy, the fitness community treats it as absolute unassailable law.
Oh, completely.
If the meta-analysis says that 5 reps and 20 reps produce the exact same amount of muscle growth, people will fight to the death in comment sections defending that equivalence.
And to be fair, we must respect meta-analyses. They aggregate the data sets from dozens of individual randomized controlled trials, drastically increasing the statistical power and reducing the margin of error.
They are useful tools.
Very useful. They give us the tightest possible confidence intervals for what works generally across a population. But the source material provides the necessary caveat that gets completely lost in online discourse.
Which is?
A meta-analysis is a mathematical construct. It aggregates data to find the mean. It intentionally smooths out the bell curve.
It effectively erases the outliers to find the center point.
Precisely. If a meta-analysis concludes there is no statistically significant difference between low-load and high-load training for hypertrophy, that means, on average, the cohort experienced similar results.
But you, listening to this right now, are not a meta-analysis.
You are a single, highly specific data point.
You have a unique ratio of type I slow twitch to type 2 fast twitch muscle fibers.
You have a unique biomechanical lever system.
Exactly.
Your specific physiology might be located on the extreme right tail of the bell curve for heavy, high-tension loads. You might explode with growth doing sets of 5.
But your specific genetic makeup might severely struggle to clear the localized metabolic byproducts generated during sets of 20, leading to a complete stall in adaptation.
Even if the massive authoritative meta-analysis says both styles are perfectly equal.
Because they are equal for the average human.
Right. You have to use the scientific literature as a compass heading. It points you to the most statistically probable starting line.
But you still have to run the race.
Exactly. Once you start running the protocol, if you have dialed in your recovery, systematically titrated your volume, and ensured your proximity to failure is accurate, and you still aren't responding,
You have to pivot.
you have to be willing to abandon the optimal consensus and experiment with entirely different physiological stimuli. You have to find your unique biological resonance.
Which perfectly leads us into the final section of our breakdown today, the long game.
This is where it all comes together.
We've thrown an immense amount of kinesiology, statistical analysis, and biological troubleshooting at you. But the text brings all of this hard science back to the reality of human psychology.
Because knowing how to manipulate the MTOR pathway doesn't matter if your psychological resilience is broken.
Exactly. The source material explicitly identifies the hard gainer label as a highly dangerous, self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
And when you view it through the lens of behavioral psychology, you see exactly why.
It's learned helplessness.
Explain that.
Well, if you fundamentally internalize the belief that you lack the biological machinery to adapt, that your DNA is flawed, your behavioral response to adversity completely changes.
Right.
When the training program gets excruciatingly difficult and you don't immediately see results, what is the logical incentive to continue?
There's none.
Exactly. If the outcome is perceived as genetically fixed, effort becomes completely irrational. You stop trying to aggressively titrate your volume. You stop pushing into those agonizing high-threshold reps that dictate true failure.
You compromise your sleep hygiene because you subconsciously believe the biological environment doesn't matter anyway.
You just go through the motions. And because you go through the motions, you fail to cross the dose threshold,
And because you fail to cross the threshold, your body doesn't adapt.
which provides you with the exact physical evidence you need to confirm your initial bias. See? I knew I was a hard gainer.
It is a closed-loop system of biological failure driven entirely by psychology.
The only way to break that loop is to radically adjust your expectations regarding the timeline of adaptation.
Yeah, let's talk about the math here, because the text provides a really sobering mathematical reality check.
It does.
It notes that gaining a genuine half-pound of lean contractile tissue in a month feels like absolute failure to most people.
And visually, it is failure. I mean, if you step on the scale on day 1 and 30 days later you are exactly half a pound heavier, that amount of tissue distributed across the total surface area of your skeletal frame is completely invisible to the naked eye.
You look in the mirror and you see zero change.
None. It's incredibly easy to conclude that the stimulus was ineffective.
But if we extrapolate that exact same trajectory, a seemingly invisible, agonizingly slow rate of half a pound a month over the course of a year, that is 6 pounds of pure muscle tissue.
And for an advanced natural lifter, 6 pounds of true lean mass in a calendar year is an exceptional biological achievement.
It's massive, and compounded over 5 years of unbroken, meticulously tracked, dose-adjusted effort.
That is 30 pounds.
30 pounds of dense functional tissue. Imagine looking at 30 pounds of raw steak at a butcher counter.
It's a lot of mass.
Now imagine surgically grafting that mass onto your shoulders, your chest, your legs. As the script rightly points out, you literally become a completely different structural entity.
It is the terrifying, beautiful power of compound biological interest.
Wow.
We live in a fitness culture obsessed with 3-month hypertransformations, entirely fueled by extreme lighting, dehydration tactics, and often undisclosed pharmaceutical enhancements.
Oh, absolutely.
We chronically overestimate what is biologically possible in 90 days, and we tragically underestimate what our physiology is capable of over 5 years of relentless, data-driven consistency.
And the final visual storyboard perfectly captures the ethos of this mindset.
The long game image.
Yeah, it's titled Closing the Long Game. It depicts this massive, empty, industrial-style facility at dawn. The lighting is low and hazy, cutting through these large arched windows.
It sets a great mood.
It does.
Yeah.
In the dead center, a solitary lifter is silhouetted, stabilizing a heavy barbell overhead. And strung across the rafters is a weathered canvas banner that simply reads, "The Long Game."
It really encapsulates the reality that true physical adaptation is a quiet, solitary, and intensely analytical process.
It's not about the frantic energy of a quick fix.
No, it's about logging the hours, rigorously documenting your biological data, systematically tweaking your volume and intensity dials, and letting the immense leverage of time do the work.
Before we wrap up today, I want to reiterate a call to action from the source material. If this breakdown fundamentally shifted how you view your own training in biology, please go check out the Nuanced Lifter channel.
Highly recommend it.
Hit that subscribe button and leave a like on their video. The level of granular scientific rigor they bring to their scripts is really rare, and engaging with their content tells the algorithm to reward actual science over hype.
Definitely.
Also, drop a comment on their video. Have you ever fallen into the hard gainer trap? What was the specific variable, whether it was dialing in your autonomic nervous system through sleep, shifting your proximity to failure, or just throwing away the scale that finally pushed you over your unique dose threshold? Go share your data points with their community.
Because aggregating those individual experiences is how we all refine our understanding of variability.
Right. And as we close, I know you had a final thought on this.
Yeah, I think there is a profound philosophical shift embedded in the science that we really need to acknowledge.
What is the shift?
Well, we spend so much of our cognitive energy and financial resources desperately hunting for the perfect external program.
Constantly.
We look for a guru, an influencer, or a definitive meta-analysis to hand us a generalized roadmap to optimization. But if we truly accept the science of the bell curve,
Right.
and we acknowledge the wildly variable reality of the dose threshold, it changes the definition of mastery in fitness.
How so?
Perhaps the true marker of an advanced lifter isn't possessing encyclopedic knowledge of optimal programming templates. Perhaps true mastery is simply completing the transition from seeking external validation to developing a ruthless, scientifically rigorous understanding of your own internal data.
You stop being a follower of average protocols and you become the lead researcher in a lifelong, single-subject clinical trial of your own physiology. You aren't broken. Your diagnostic landscape might be complex, and the exact combination of variables required to force your body to adapt might be highly unique, but the biological machinery works.
It does work.
You just haven't applied enough concentrated fire to reach your specific boiling point. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep it nuanced, and we will see you next time.